Chapter 41. A Word for Our Time. It could indeed in these times be asked, even as these long past events are being recounted anew, through an especially chosen scribe on behalf of mankind, by myself, the same Christ who nearly 2,000 years ago, as God and man, taught and acted. What's this? Maybe more than half of these children, as security of the Pharisees, had they not been intercepted here, would have been in 10 or at the most 12 days sold by packed slave traders in Sidon, Tyre, Caesarea, Antioch, or even Alexandria, yet would have been well-bred children. Nevertheless, there is no indication that I, as a foremost friend of the little ones, ever visited them or spoke a word to them, whereas I normally would let the little ones come unto me, hugging and blessing them before all men. On this question, I give the following answer. For a start, these children were of course mostly aged already over 9 years, and there were girls of 14 to 16 among them, as well as youths. And one could not therefore enter a roomful of such half-naked people without causing offence. And secondly, these were no longer such as could still be innocent children, such as had still found here and there, but basically mostly spoilt, carnally and morally. For paedophilia and defilement were nowhere as prevalent as in the border regions between Jews and Greeks. And so, even for these very depraved children, their recent lesson, permitted by me, was not altogether useless, because this experience had to firstly appear as a powerful punishment for depravity, and secondly, they were warned thereby to from now on avoid serving the sensuality of the lewd Greeks, and live a God-fearing life in all earnest, if they did not want to be punished by God most severely for the very next sin. Something Faustus had driven home penetratingly in his exhortation speech to the parents and children. Appraised thus, it shall hopefully be understood that I, although filled with all godly love towards each human being, on account of the same godly holiness nevertheless, cannot and must not personally approach such sinful and unclean flesh, for the good of its own continued existence. Wherefore the familiar "do not touch me" applies in all such cases. For there is an immense difference between a pure and a most impure child. The first can be guided by me directly, while the second only indirectly, and that along essentially, or as need be, thorny paths. It should not therefore be rashly asked why, not seldom children, who surely have committed either no offence at all, or who at least are not yet of an accountable age, are afflicted by me sometimes more harshly than aged sinners, who would find it as hard to number their sins as the sand of the sea. Here I say, whoever has notions of making a tree lean towards some direction must start to do so while the tree is still young and tender. Once the tree has grown old, then extraordinary means would need to be applied for giving it any possible new direction. A very old tree, however, shall accept no other direction than the final one, when hewn down. And it therefore happens that I, speaks the Lord, sometimes worked children and even little ones over more severely than someone ripe in years, because nowhere are the evil spirits busier and more ready to serve than with the children, in helping the soul to build her body in such a way as for her body to harbour free and comfortable dwelling places for a large number of their kind. But what does the Lord, to whom nothing can remain unknown, then do? See, he sends his angel and has the work of the wretched helpers pulled down and removed as foreign parts through outwardly apparent sickness. Consider the diverse sicknesses of children and little ones. And I say unto you, these are nothing but castings out of the evil foreign substances, through which evil and dishonest spirits, assisting the soul in building her body, wanted to build for themselves free dwelling places in that selfsame body. If such mischief were not constantly tackled in children most decisively, then the numbers upon earth of the possessed, deaf and dumb, idiots and cripples, would swell to such proportions that hardly a single healthy individual could be found upon the earth. It is of course asked again and said, but how can the most wise God allow such at the start, so that such evil and impure spirits can smuggle themselves into the young body of a soul? And I say, thus asks the blind man, who does not know that the entire earth, and indeed the entire creation, in its outer apparent material aspect, is to be, so to say, defined in all its so-called elements, as a combining of spirits held under judgment, or imprisonment for a determined time.